Retirement is often seen as a destination, but we believe it's an opportunity to pursue your passions, realize your dreams, and live a purposeful life. Great decisions, incredible lives. Retire with Intention podcast is about more than just money. It's about embracing the things that truly matter, the experiences, the relationships, and the impact you leave behind. Here is your host, John Creekmore.
Well, everybody, thank you so much for listening again to Great Decisions, Incredible Lives. And I'll tell you what, it's such a joy every single week to be able to spend time with you, introduce you to new friends of ours, and sometimes old friends of ours, and sometimes new friends of ours that seem like old friends of ours, and just kind of walk through things of life, things they've learned, things that they've become specialists on, and really just to learn from each other and just to continue a great conversation about how all of us can make better decisions to live incredible lives. And it's truly about your definition of what an incredible life is. And today I'm so excited to have a new friend of ours, Joy, with us, Joy Loverde, and she gave me a tremendous class in how to pronounce her last name in the, I'll say in the proper way, so maybe Joy will educate all of us on that too. And so I'm so excited, Joy, to have you here today, and we're going to walk through a topic that is near and dear to me. And Joy, I don't know if I've told you this, we as a firm, we work with over 3,500 clients from all around the world at this point. And I've been in this industry, wealth management, goodness, since 33, this is our 35th year starting up in January this next year. And so I've learned as I've gotten older and gone through seasons of life, so have my clients. And so I've been able to come alongside and navigate things with them. And I know things we're going to talk about today are going to be a tremendous help and blessing for them. So Joy, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming today.
I am absolutely delighted, John.
Hey, can you introduce yourself to everybody, give them a little background as far as who you are and what you're passionate about, and that'd be great for everyone to kind of meet you.
Absolutely, thanks. My name is Joy Loverde, and I am the author of two books. One is The Complete Elder Care Planner. The fourth edition just came out last year, at the end of last year, and also the book titled Who Will Take Care of Me When I'm Old? So, John, what I've done is gone full circle here. So we're talking about we're going to be taking care of beloved family members, but then who's going to do this for us as we age? That's why I covered both books, both topics.
I'll tell you what, and just so everybody knows, in the show notes, Joy, we have links as far as to the books that people will be able to go and find online, and links also as far as different ways to follow you and get information as far as connecting on things that you do. So make sure you check those out in the show notes. And Joy's already mentioned the two books. The one's the fourth edition, right? So
that's right. That's right. It's been around for a long time. You mentioned you've been in the business for 33 years. I've been in for 45.
Wow.
Yeah.
You've seen a lot of things in that period of time. And I just realized it's such a blessing to be able to spend time with people, to go through different stages of life. We see things and learn things. In those 40 plus years, Joy, have you seen things change as it relates to elder care?
Oh, yeah. In the beginning, when I first started, the first book came out in 1985. And this is before anybody even thought about elder care. So the first client, the big client, was corporate America. They wanted to help family members who were employed juggle work and taking care of family members at the same time. But they didn't really realize that it was so compelling of an issue for their employees. So look where we are now. Workplace employee benefits are plentiful. We just wish more people would take advantage of them.
It seems like a lot of people, they have a lot of benefits, but are not aware of those benefits. They're not aware of how to take advantage of them. And so you're so right. We want to make sure we understand that. And just thinking about that period of time, you've written the two books, The Complete Elder Care Planner, and then Who Will Take Care of Me When I'm Old? And going back on that first edition, what was it that prompted you as far as to have an interest in writing on this topic?
You know, John, we don't have a problem with healthcare in this country. In fact, we have the best healthcare, I think, in the world. But what we do have is family members who don't really know how to plan for elder care, and nor do they understand the best way to approach it with their parents. I mean, really, it is quite sensitive. So what I did was I made a decision to write a guide for the family member and teaching them how to talk about elder care and the questions to ask and how to find help. So that was the first goal. Let's get people talking to each other. I've been traveling since 1985 all across America and now across the globe talking about elder care. But about 10 years ago, something very interesting started to happen. People would come up to me after one of my talks and they would say, I'm doing this for my parents, but I don't have children. I don't have a big family. Who's going to do this for me? And I knew that that was going to be my next book. So that's how I got into it. I've been around, coming from a big Italian family. We have family members in our homes and every time we celebrate. But I thought everybody did that. And I found out that that was not true, that there was a separation between family members, young and old, people moving, so on. So I wrote books to help people get together again.
What a great resource, a great outlet. You mentioned talking and started the conversation with people. From your experience, is this a topic that people are comfortable talking about? Is it something they want to talk about? Is it kind of taboo? We just don't want to go there. What have you seen about that? Is it a comfort thing? And if not, how do people start to get into the conversation?
I think elder care is probably one of the most taboo topics to talk about within families. Because a lot of it, John, has to do with money. So how in the heck are we supposed to approach our parents if they have enough money to finance a long life? So there's a financial talking taboo. And also, do we really want to talk about the day we hope will never come? This is very tough. And all the adults in the room are the ones who typically begin the conversation in spite of how scary it is. Thank goodness that we've seen more interest in the news and in the workplace so that we have a platform to begin conversations.
I think that experientially, we have this generation of people that have actually started to live through some of the negative consequences of not having conversation with previous generations about elder care. And all of a sudden, then they've had to walk through a very negative experience. And so they have that real life situation. And then you're correct. We do see more media, we see more coverage, we see more papers written to bring this to the forefront as far as how you navigate that. And you've been a leader in thought in that. All of a sudden, Joy, I was just thinking, we've used the word elder care a number of times. Can you kind of put some framework or a definition around that? Sometimes I think we use the same words, but with different definitions. So can you put some framework about what elder care is and what does that mean?
Yeah, and I love that you're bringing this up because the word care is off-putting for most people. First of all, we look at our parents and our grandparents, and they may not need care. So when we use jargon like elder care and caregiving, it just says, well, that's not me. They're not talking about me because there's nothing wrong. So what I like to do is take the word care and throw it out the window. And when I'm talking to family members, what I do is say, let's use the word, do our parents or grandparents or loved ones need our attention? Now we can go somewhere with this. What is it that they may need from us in terms of attention? Because unless we're a medical professional, we're certainly not going to be providing medical care. We might be managing it, but we're not going to do care. So now the word attention, okay, that opens up a whole new ballgame.
I love that. That's such a practical thing that you can change the conversation because you're right. People don't want to think about going to a nursing home, let's say, as a phrase. I never want to think about that. And so whenever that word care comes up, it does start to elicit some emotions that we have, and we just don't want to go there. We put up these guardrails, and it makes it difficult.
Here's some really good news. Needing care as we get old is not a given. There are many, many people that I know. I have lots and lots of old friends who don't need care at all. They're in their 90s. They're 100. They're living independent. They work out. They have a large social network, and they don't require care. And I'll even bring it home for you. My mother was one of those people, died at 92, in her sleep, never needed a day of care. So what is that about? She was active with her family. She had a large social network outside the family. She was happy. She was content. She would go down to the fitness room. She lived with us. She would work out with me on the treadmill. So much had to do with knowing that care isn't a given.
Mm. So now all of a sudden we have this word care, and when we
Right.
use the word attention, as far as do we
Right.
need attention? So it sounds like there are different various ways we can provide attention with people as they age. And it might not just be medical. So I was thinking we have long-term care and we have
Mhm.
medical care. Now those are two different things that could have some overlap, right? But what are
Well,
some what do
yeah.
you think?
Well, I don't see them overlap at all.
Hmm.
So, long term care, again, I don't use that in terms of my own, how I have the older people in my life. It's long term attention. So, what am I doing with them? I have more of a social model. I take a look and I see if they recently retired, are they bored? Do they want to go back to work? Or are they extremely happy? I look at paying attention to, are their friends or family dying and moving away? Are they feeling a loss of relationships? I also look for events that may indicate that there is a maybe recent diagnosis of something that requires attention. Again, it's a medical model, which is where most people think they have to begin with this responsibility. Mine is purely social. Are
Hmm.
they happy? Do they have people around them? How are they getting around if they're not driving, and so on?
I love that, Joy. That is such a salient point that I think a lot of people miss. It's truly that social interaction that
Mhm.
so many people miss in life, and yet that's connected to so many other things as it
Yeah,
relates to our health, our psychology, our emotion, the social element. And if we're not aware of where people are at, then we're not going to be able to give them the attention they need, do we?
no, that's right. So, one other thing that's just critically important that isn't medical and that isn't social, and that is financial. So now we need to pay attention to the money card when it comes to paying for a longer life. And again, not necessarily paying for long term care, but paying for a quality of life, like where people want to live and how they want to spend money that in a way that makes them happy.
Hmm.
So, financial obligations on the part of the family members and parents, we have to talk about money. That, in fact, is number one on the list.
Mm. So number one on the list is to talk about money, and I know with the over the last 3 years, we've seen this incredible rising cost of everything that we're all
Mhm.
walking through. And I would think that could be a good way to actually maybe use that as a springboard into conversations to say, boy, cost of milk and bread and everything has gone up so much, mom, dad. How is that affecting you? That could be a springboard or catalyst into the money conversation to
Yeah,
walk through.
yeah, it is definitely something. Now, one of the things that I do, and I know from 40 years of experience, is I have an approach called I go first. So there's no guarantee that our parents are going to be the ones that we have to pay attention to. Don't they also want to possibly pay attention to us and their
Mm-hmm.
grandchildren? So
Mm-hmm.
I usually begin the conversation by saying, boy, I went to the grocery store the other day and I cannot believe the cost of groceries. I mean, it is really affecting my budget. And I'm wondering about that for all of us. I mean, what is this about the cost of groceries or the cost of anything, housing, mortgage? But I like to bring it up in terms of my quality of life and see if they want to come to, my rescue and give me some advice. So that's what I mean by I go first. I break the ground on talking about how difficult it is and how concerned I am about paying for my own long term life. And then, they are our parents. and grandparents. And many times they want to contribute to the quality of our lives through conversations
Mhm.
because they care about us.
Hmm.
So I go first.
What a great way to give dignity to conversation. Because I think sometimes as people age, I've seen it happen a lot when I sit with a lot of people. It seems like all of a sudden the conversation starts to be directive or talking down to, or like there's not much value in the conversation. But by using I go first, what you're doing, besides getting into a subject matter, you're also doing it in a way that gives tremendous dignity and it honors the person you're talking to with their experiences, their life, things they've walked through, their counsel, their advice. You're bringing them into the conversation, you're lifting them up and doing it that way.
Oh, yeah. We hear all these stories about role reversal and parenting your parents. And I'm here to say there's no such thing. And if you go down that road in terms of a communication approach, there's a good chance they'll just slam the door and never want to talk about anything important again. That's not our job. Our job is to facilitate what it is that they say they need and want, and, to the point where they are safe and secure. And if we're not the best person for the communication, then we could solicit friends, their friends, and doctors and other people. But really, one of the questions I always ask myself when I know I have a sensitive subject to talk about is, am I the best person to bring this up?
Mm.
I'll tell you something fun that I know for a fact is, John, who do you think is the most influential person in the family to get our parents and grandparents to do things?
So the most influential person in the family to get them to do things, I don't know. I'm going to say the youngest child in the family.
The grandchild.
The grandchild is.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
That is the person who could. I have seen grandchildren get their grandparents to quit smoking, quit drinking, quit driving, quit swearing. They are magical. Grandchildren and grandparents are magical. So if you don't have a child or a grandchild, you have nieces and nephews who are grandchildren. And if they have good relationships with your parents, then bring them in and see the magic just happen. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
So no, that's actually as a young grandparent myself, that's actually good counsel to make sure that I've got a great relationship with James and Ruby, because they're the ones that are going to be encouraging me as I get older to do the right things.
They really are. And I have an unbelievable relationship with my grandchildren because they see the value and they tend to look at us like, okay, you're safe. You're a safe person. You're not my parents, but you're safe. And so it goes both ways.
Yeah, it really does. What a great counsel, man. I would have never thought about that on my own, Joy. That's just phenomenal counsel. Even to enlist. I mean, when you kind of think about it, we're always thinking about heritage, legacy. We're thinking about how do we transfer those core values that we have to the next generation. But walking through it that way, it's like an intentionality of having conversations and transferring that to the next generation, that care and concern then for the previous generations. It's really a full circle conversation. And so I love that concept and that tip. That's phenomenal. When we kind of start thinking about just the different people involved in care, it seems like what you're talking about is a larger circle of people that are truly working together in conversation. They're truly working together, being attentive to what's happening and what areas we give attention to. Do you see that it's more of a narrow grouping of people that kind of work through this giving attention, or is it a broader circle? What do you normally see on that?
I'm seeing all kinds of models for this kind of family responsibility. The ones that need to better understand that they have a larger circle available to them, but they don't tend to tap into it, are the only child. So the only child is so responsible. And I have never met one that is just not overly responsible. And that's the one I always have to say, there is a network for you. You just need to know. Go, look in your own backyard for the enormous amount of counsel that's available for you through your churches, your professional advisors, and your volunteer networks, your area agency on aging. I implore them to reach out as best they can and not take this on alone. It is way too hard, especially if they're dealing with two parents and both parents have a chronic condition of some kind. I would just go down as saying it's almost impossible to do it alone without killing yourself.
Yeah, I can see people. A lot of people are carrying a lot of weight on their
Yeah.
shoulders doing that, and man, that can just really wear you out in the level of the care. The caregiver, the one that's paying attention and the one that's giving the attention, they carry a heavy, heavy load on that. So from that, I'm going to ask the question. I don't even have an idea on Joy. You've educated me so much already today. Thank you for that. And so you had mentioned different agencies as far as working with. Just from what you've seen nationwide, we seem to have a really strong network of different organizations that we can work with and get information on. Do you find that most people have an awareness of the different agencies and have an idea of what they do?
Sadly, no. I think there's a stigma, John, now that I'm talking with you. There's a stigma that couple of things. You shouldn't have to ask for help. That's number one. But number two, if you look to all of the benefits and resources that are readily available to us, the stigma is that you might not be the ability to afford better services or products that are made available. So there's a tendency not to look for the neighborhood resources that really are low cost and sometimes free, rather than going to the more ridiculously expensive agencies that most people cannot afford. So they do nothing. And it's a mindset, even like trying to convince our parents to accept help from a local organization is like, no, that's not for me. And we family members have to bend over backwards to convince them that your taxes paid for this. You deserve all this help, and so do I. And we need to use these benefits. So there's so much help available. Not knowing that they're there and then deciding not to use them is mind-boggling to me.
It makes you very sad when you kind of think about the number of people that are just they're kind of getting by, not getting the attention they need, not getting the medical care they need, not getting the service they need. And you think about then the caregivers, the family members, grandchildren, whoever it may be, that are shouldering a heavier load, and we cannot get past those mindsets. And it doesn't have to be that way.
No, it doesn't. So you just gave me another great idea for all the people who are listening who are younger and they're employed and they have a HR department or an employees benefits person at work. This is the best place for you to start, because there are benefits that are available to you and your family members. So if you are a younger caregiver, be sure to talk to your employer about what's available to you and your elders, because this way you'll get used to the idea of asking for help early on. And I just read some of the most, in fact, it's in the latest edition of the Complete Elder Care Planner. I found out some of the caregivers are very young now. They're in high school. They're also in college. And this is because they are caring for grandparents and parents, older parents. And so there are scholarships available for these adult children and high schoolers and college students. There's so many resources available. And so I implore them. There's even an organization for young caregivers. If you Google Young Caregivers Association, it will pop up. I can't recall exactly the name of it now. So many resources available for young caregivers.
Yeah, I will look that up once we finish the show. I mean, it's just a phenomenal resource. And with our family going through this right now, and the thing of it is, what I've learned today is that we probably should have been going through certain steps and conversations years ago that would have helped us prepare, right? And so,
Sure.
I guess the question, Joy, when we're kind of walking through that, how soon should we start having conversations in this regard? What do you see?
Well,
How early is too early?
well, see, this is my social model. So it's never too early because all we have to keep our eye on the ball, and the ball is quality of life no matter what happens. So does that mean that we have most people again wait until there's a reason to have the conversation? And I say, let's have the conversation now so that we can plan for a quality of life as we go and as we transition, no matter what happens. So I like to say, as soon as everybody is aware that they want to keep the family intact, they're aware that money is a big, huge issue, and we need to talk about money, make sure nobody runs out of money. Forgetfulness will come into play. Maybe we have to prepare for forgetfulness. And by the way, that could happen to the family members and as well as the elders in our lives. It doesn't,
Sure.
there's no rhyme or reason for that one either. So what is preventing us from all just beginning to talk about things, even before our parents retire? Hey, mom and dad, have you thought about what you do if you're not going to be working anymore? I mean, these are just they're actually quite creative and funny and fun. And as long as there's no emergencies, they can be pretty creative, enlightening for all of us if we have the conversations early.
Yeah. Joy, I love that. It's doing life together. It's being aware
Yeah.
of others, and it's just thinking one step down the line, and then having those conversations. And that tip you gave about I go first, I can see
Mhm.
that applying to so many different elements of the conversation and so many different entry points of using it. Even you just mentioned, well, mom and dad, if you're not going to be working at some point, you retire in the future. Have you thought about what that looks like every day? I mean, those are just great open-ended questions that reveal so much to us that help us care for people so that we all age together well. And so I love that. I love that
Yeah.
so much. Now, I do know there has to be some level of emotion involved in this process. Are there some challenges that come up with the emotional element that we need to be aware of?
Well, we all know how the story ends.
Hmm,
So, yeah, we're always grieving, by the way. We're
interesting.
always it's called anticipated grief. So, when we're with people that are older than us, the underlying emotion is grieving. And it's also connected to why we feel so guilty when we feel like we're not doing enough. And it's
Hmm.
all related to the truth of the matter is we can't do it all. And so the emotions of grief and guilt are intertwined. They're constant companions in this entire process. And that's why every single time we're with our loved ones, I don't care if they're 2 years old or 100 years old, I'm always saying to myself, this moment counts. This
Mm,
present moment is all I have with these people. And so it's the way that I manage my grieving by loving them so much in the moment and not treating them like they're a problem to solve, but actually loving them so much in the moment. And if a problem arises, so what? I'll figure it out.
hmm Well, we've talked a lot about where we've been as far as in care and using the word attention there, that entire process. And just from your experience in the last 40 plus years and just researching and spending time with people and living your own life and those connected to you. And we've even talked about some things to do in the moment. Everything's always changing and developing. I mean, do you see any future trends in this area that we need to be aware of or keep our eye on? What are you seeing as far as in the future?
Yeah, what I'm loving and observing a lot is leave it to the boomers to figure out how to go back to the commune concept. Love the one you're with, right?
Right?
So I'm seeing a lot of people moving in together, young and old,
Mm,
all different ages, different kinds of concepts in housing. And I'm very excited about it
mm,
because coming from an Italian family, an Italian background, We do life together. And even if you're a solo ager and you live with others, we weren't ever meant to live alone or die alone for that matter. And just finding ways to live together. And that's the trend I'm seeing is people are getting together, living together, and living full out.
Yeah. That's a phenomenal the trend we're seeing in the future. And I think everyone needs to be able to say, hey, we need to be able to adapt and grow. And part of that is what things that happen in the future. You and I were joking earlier that we could probably have a great conversation for the next 3 or 4 hours, and all of a sudden, what do we talk about? And it's like, wow, we're getting to the end of the show. When you kind of think about things, Joe, we covered a lot of information. If you would want to say, hey, let's summarize things down, how would you summarize this entire topic?
So it is a big topic. We've talked about a million things, right?
Yeah.
So people get overwhelmed by planning. So I'm going to do, in a nutshell, number 1, talk about money. Number 2, talk about where you're going to live. And number 3, get your legal documents in order. So those 3 topics are for the family member and the elder. Separately and together, start talking about those 3. If you just do those 3, you're good to go.
That is a huge takeaway. Those 3 are critical 3 and some of those are taboo things to walk through. And that's why the tips that you gave on how to get in the conversation are so critical. And normally I don't say this. I would encourage everyone, get your pad and get your pen and paper and sit down, go back and replay this episode. And just, there's so many, Joy, you gave so many incredible nuggets today that are just a blessing and so many tips that sometimes I think whenever I listen to something 2 and 3 times, I get more and more action items I'm able to do. So folks, I would encourage you, go back and definitely listen 2 or 3 times and with a pad and paper and write things down. Also, make sure you connect with Joy as far as picking up one of her books. Phenomenal resources. And if you love the tips she walked through today, I mean, these books are chock full of so many incredible things that we're going to challenge your thought. It's going to challenge maybe some of the ways we always thought about doing things. So that's what we all need to grow. And there's also even practical ways to walk through how do we give attention for those that are around us. So Joy, thank you so much for being with us today. I look forward to continuing the conversation in time. And everybody, thanks for the time you spent with us today. And always continue in the community, the conversations that we have, and definitely reach out just with different feedbacks and different questions you have. And we'll talk to you guys later. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you again for listening to the Great Decisions, Incredible Lives, Retire with Intention podcast with host John Creekmer. Follow us on social media, visit our website, and join our community of like-minded individuals redefining retirement and living incredible lives. Please leave us a review and share our podcast with others who may benefit. We wish you a future filled with purpose, fulfillment, and the joy of living your incredible life in retirement.